Welcome to the second video installment of The Other Side of Ropes. I'm your humble host, Red, aka Shaka. Um, Once again, this is well, like I said, it's a pretty old darn thing, but like I said, we're doing something different. Um, And for those of you who have survived the first installment with your retinas intact and your synapses still in place and your nerves aren't completely shot, congratulations. Okay, that means I'm getting through to some people. But sometimes you got to go through a gut check, right? Sitting here in my humble abode as usual, and I'm just going over the marination in my mind about the last installment. Some of the comments I've gotten. Yeah. Um, I still always, as usual, has a few things on my mind, and of course, some of you could have made a drinking game out of how many times I said. For those of you who don't know, well, I'm going to tell you right now. It might be a nervous tick, so I'm a bit repetitive, but who cares? But you know what? I was actually drinking a couple of rounds before I got here, and who cares? Anyway, that's neither here or there. For anybody who doesn't know right about now, my biggest kick as of late was the whole bit about the roots of professional wrestling. And for those of you who still haven't quite gotten that, okay, that's 2 times I said it for anybody keeping track. I'd actually give you the number one sign, but I'm being polite. But anyway, I've been on this recent rant as of late about the roots of professional wrestling, and there's been an actual style. Why, yes, there is, Virginia. There is a wrestling style. It's called Catch as Catch Can. And as of late, I've been looking around and trying to seek a few schools because why? Well, I've noticed the one thing that most people keep crying about, as usual, is that whole thing about what's going on with Raw. I'll tell you what's wrong with Raw. I'll tell you what's wrong with mainstream. There is no wrestling anymore in mainstream. That's why it's called sports entertainment. That's been going bye-bye because it's been marginalized even before my time, my generation, before we even watched it. And the thing I really love the most is when people turn around and they tend to romanticize about stuff that we grew up watching about 25 years ago. Guess what, folks? I don't call it old school. To me, it's not old school. I call it the stuff I grew up watching about 25 years ago. And quite frankly, some of it only watched to kill time until I turned around and watched Jim Crockett. Yeah, I'll let you figure out which part I was actually killing time to watch. Okay, and even then, that was kind of getting hampered because why? The guys we grew up watching, even though they were taught to wrestle, they were being told not to wrestle until you got the product you got on TV now, because they're not doing any of that. Because I'm going to let you know a little secret. For the past 9 years, actually the past 10, because I remember the first season of Tough Enough. And that was when one of the judges was Ivory. They had a guy on there, I believe his name was Hawk. He actually turned around and said he got trained at Killer Kowalski's school, or as Killer would say, Institute. Yeah, I went there. No, not the Institute. I mean, I went there. You know what I'm trying to say. And he said he actually broke in at Killer's school. And Ivory said, and I quote, now you're going to have to unlearn everything you learned and learn the way we want you to learn, because they didn't want them to do half the stuff that they were supposed to do. Why? They're not exactly acknowledging everything that's going on in the independents. You know why they're not? Because back in the good old days when we grew up watching this stuff, there was a thing not called independent wrestling. There was a thing called the Outlaw, the Renegade promotions, because they weren't the ones sanctioned by the National Wrestling Alliance. And anybody that didn't do their history, got news for you. Back in 1954, the National Wrestling Alliance actually did get nailed by the Department of Justice for monopolizing professional wrestling in the United States. Why? They violated an antitrust act to say that got set way back in the 1800s and saying you can't do that sort of thing. That's the birth of capitalism, folks. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. If it ain't in Wikipedia, you can look on Amazon and find a book. It's about the history of the National Wrestling Alliance and how it put a stranglehold on professional wrestling. It is there. I had the book. In fact, I read it twice before I gave it away to my tag team partner. Bull, this is for you, Romano. If you read it, read it again. You might be surprised about some of those details you might have missed. because that's why I read it twice. I might have to ask you for it back. Nah, I'm kidding. You keep that. That's your gift. I know where I got it from before, and I'll get it again. No biggie. Anyway, I love how everybody loves to romanticize about the good old days, about the past. And I keep saying, you can't go home again. You know why? Because the guys who turned around and did the stuff that they did and we grew up watching were trained by totally different folks. And the guys who's, I'm sorry to say this, are training folks now didn't have that expansive knowledge, and they didn't bother trying to learn anymore, which is why a guy like me is actually turning around and learning some more stuff or trying to find another school. Why? Look around you. Professional wrestling does have some serious competition. It's called mixed martial arts, and even Jim Cornette admitted out of his own mouth a couple of years ago that that's pretty much the old school wrestling all over again. Only difference is they're in a cage and they're wearing 8-ounce gloves. There it is. No, I'm sorry. They're wearing 4-ounce gloves. But you get the idea. And everybody says it's all barbaric. I didn't think it was barbaric. No, I'm sorry. You guys didn't think it was barbaric when you saw somebody going through a table now, did you? Oh, that's another thing. Shout out to one of my close friends, and I like to call her compatriot, comrade, and someone I took under my wing a few years ago, Rebecca Payne, who unfortunately has to put in her retirement now because of health problems. It's weird because I'm actually older than her, but she's also the former queen of death matches. And the reason why she cannot continue her wrestling career, she's banged up, folks. For all of you who think that this is a game, I rest assured you it is not. Okay? Rebecca's been in this business probably like maybe a speck of time compared to how long I've been in. And I've been in for almost 13 years. And it'll be 13 come this August. Okay? And knock on wood, I haven't had anything too serious. In fact, I haven't had anything more serious than a broken nose. Okay? And I'm here to tell you, for everybody who thinks that it's a game, that thinks it's fake, it's choreographed, see, there's a reason why not everybody can do this. And for all the idiots that think that they're going to learn all their finer points from playing Raw versus SmackDown, you need to get a serious attitude adjustment and reality check. Okay? One of the reasons why they don't take us seriously is because they think it's choreographed. Okay? For all the poor training that we're getting, and even though they bust their butts day in and day out in the gyms, it's still not enough in terms of technique. A whole bunch of stuff has to be changed. And I got news for you. Whether you realize it or not, for us to be a sport, we're not organized well enough to be a sport. Okay? If that was the case, we're probably the only sport that does not have an organized union. Never had, and so far does not, and probably never will. Okay? The NFL, not the sponsors of the NFL that's giving all these players all this money. No, they have unions. That's why they're able to go on strike. That's why you hear about lockouts and stuff from the NFL or from the NHL and all these other guys. That's the reason why you can get scab players, because they actually have unions. Guess what? Wrestling never had a union. You know why? For all the money you might get if you go on contract for Vince, you don't get health care. Why do you think for all the doggone sports you have, we're the only one that's not considered a sport? Okay? You have all these people that's been involved in it in some capacity, whether old, new, retired, or active, dropping like flies left and right. We had so many people dying over the last decade or so, I've lost count as of the names or the ages. Okay? Even the most recent ones, I gotta get reminded. Oh, whoa. Because they're not dying of natural causes per se. Well, technically on the sheets they are, but come on. I mean, I'm used to hearing about some one or two maybe dying over, like, okay, it might have been an overdose, but now why are they overdosing? Why are they overdosing? Okay? And this is back when they were going on the road. The guys you see on TV, they have one of the craziest schedules. Even the NWA champion back in the height of its time, back about 20, 30 years ago, didn't have a schedule as crazy as the guys on the E that's on contract now. You know why? They're on schedule. They're on the road 360 days out the year, 4 days off, no health care, none. And this is why Brock Lesnar left, because like he said, it's like Groundhog Day, because he's right. It's a grind, people. But we're not taken seriously because we're not athletes. Well, they're not athletes. They're an attraction. That's why they're able to go on the road the way they are. They're athletic. Okay? At least here in the independents, we got a choice because we actually get to run on any given weekend, any given Friday, any given Saturday, or in some cases, any given Sunday. But mostly on the weekends, Friday and Saturday is when you're going to see us shine and do our thing. And we don't get much for it. Sure, you want to do that fancy thing when you're going to dive off the top or whatever, and dive off the top of your cage, off the top of the rope, onto the outside of the ring, and probably go to 3 or 4 flaming tables, and Lord knows what the heck else you want to do. But you ever think about the consequences? Even the old heads would turn around and ask you, do you plan on doing this for a long time? Do you plan on making a career out of doing this? Do you plan on doing this for the next 10 years? You want to do that? Strongly suggest you cut that part out of your act, because after a while it turned into you can only do it once, and that one time may be just your last. One little miscalculation, you land just wrong, there goes your neck. You can't walk. Ask Hayabusa. Ropes weren't loose enough, and you had the match against Manu Sasaki. He comes off and does his mid rope Sucia Cabrata, if you want to call it the lion salt for you WWE fanatics. Didn't even clear a quarter of the ring before he landed on his neck. He's still learning how to walk to this day, and that was 10 years ago. And people wonder why a guy my size isn't even going to try to do a moonsault. Sure, I can do a moonsault, but you know what? I like my knees the way they are, intact. Okay, whether you guys realize it or not, like I said, I got over a decade tacked in on this doggone thing invested. I got more time in wrestling than I've got in the military. Okay, and guess what? I can still walk just fine, even for a guy my size. There's a reason behind that. I'm a lot of things. Crazy might be one. Stupid is not another one. Got me? That's why I'm trying to learn the real stuff. Why I'm still physically intact and make a difference. This is why I say every time I get in the ring, there's a statement to be made. Well, that's my statement. Anybody want to ask what's going on? You want to entertain? That's fine. You can go ahead and entertain. I'll entertain too. But you know what? I'm going to do it the way it says on that marquee. The marquee says wrestling. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. On that note, I'm going to stop this rant. I got mail to check, and plus this thing slows down my doggone internet when I'm trying to let this thing publish. So on that, all my American friends, peace them out. To my German people, greats. And to my Flemish, inderdaad.